Why can't? No, she is in this meeting. Try.
Yeah, I have a cord. We could plug in here.
Right there on that. And I'm supposed to.
What's the internet password? Right here. Here it is.
The internet password is 2640 capital S.
Yes. So. 640 capital S TAR exclamation. Should do. Between these two.
Okay, so what's the network called? What is the network called here that we want?
Something guest.
Stay on. You got the, you want some? Stay on.
Can I steal a couple of your books?
You got the meeting link for him? The link for him for Zoom?
I would rather not.
Okay, just. I just need some-
See, I will. What's your email?
Stan,
Okay. I'll just locate here and I'll forward this to you. Yeah, sure. Stan, S-T-A-N,
at,
just lowercase.
email doesn't matter.
Oh, no, really?
No. Stan. Nature Smart, N-A-T. U-R-E. S-M-A-R-T.com. Send it. Let's see. Then you send your power here?
Yes, plug into the white thing here.
Wait and see if I got the email yet.
Yep, it just came in for you.
Oh, some of the services being done.
As soon as you get on, I'll make you a co-host and then we'll kick her off here.
Okay. One or the other of you is gonna have to turn the microphones off on your. On the computer. So that we don't get feedback. Plus, make sure that you don't have your speakers on this. Or else it'll be feedback.
So how am I gonna talk? To the meeting.
Huh?
How am I gonna talk to the meeting?
It should pick it up on here.
Okay. We'll see.
Try.
Get out of there, you little bastard. Yep. There, now you should be a co-host. I think we're ready to go. Well, we're getting there. Technologically challenged here. Barb, Rose, can you hear me? Okey doke. So we're going to have Stan speak first, and I'll let Bridget introduce him. And then we'll have some refreshments and have a brief business meeting. It's all yours, Bridget.
No,
Nobody's getting closer all the time.
not even close.
Well, while we're waiting for all that to get put together, it did bring books tonight for sale.
Hey.
Hey, can you hear me? Sorry, it's so, those stands of CDs brought both here. So we want to look at them now, or finish putting together, and then we look at them on break in our meeting, and stand will be here, with this sort of. So, take a look at it.
Ready to give it a whirl.
Ready?
I need a glass of water.
Right here. Right here. Yep, go ahead.
You introduce me?
Introduce you. And actually I found a fun little, I have to get in the camera here, right? There we go. I'm too short. Stan, is from Minnesota, actually, and I found out this evening that he worked with Caroline's son there for a little bit. So that's kind of interesting connection. But Stan has made over 130 of our field guides, and some are over there this evening. And he has a holding a patch of how many you got? Okay, good. Well, then this is old that I'm looking, very old, yeah. Is that here? It's over there. So this is an old one that I have. Yeah, this is the one I'm talking about, everybody on Zoom. So, yeah, 'cause I'm looking at your picture here. You look the same. So Stan holds a bachelor's degree of science in natural history from the University of Minnesota. He's an active professional naturalist for more than, how many years now? This is 25. 35. 40 years. And this evening, he is going to give a new presentation that he has been working on this year, right? I have you given this one? Couple times. So it's a brand new presentation of wildflowers, nature's stunning beauty in full bloom. So I want to welcome Stan to our group, and I think we're ready to go.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, you need the microphone?
Do I need it?
Yeah. There you go.
How you doing? This is quite possibly the most technological challenge I've been. And these two old guys were doing pretty amazing. Off. So, our thanks for the Tekiela, author, naturalist, wildlife, chief cultivator. The list goes on and on. So you know what a naturalist is? What is it?
Well, it's all nature, this is all nature. Water, land, rocks,
This is all.
naturalist.
So clearly you don't. Announcements is kind of known as a little bit, it's a chat also, that's the chat. And what we do is.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, there's serenading. Yeah, but it's in the next room, so it won't bother us.
No. So as I was saying, this is an educated about 32 hours. So I do that to a bunch of different meetings. For one, I'm the director of the Center of the Nature Center in Prairie, Minnesota. And son. Your son I will work with? Yeah, yes. Yeah, that was That was a long time ago. I left Henry County in 2000, started there in 1980. 1980 to 2000, as a paramedic saving lives, and standing on the scenes. And
And I got to work.
right here. So and then I left, and I took the directorship of the Center for Nature. The director of the Nature Center last 23 years. And so I educated through a syndicated newspaper column. So I write a column that was across the United States and 3/4 of a million years. Anybody read it?
What's the papers?
I didn't think so. It's not so much the news or it's not outdoor news or a bunch of small weekly papers. I also basically did a radio show on listen to that either, do they?
It's at 6:30 in the morning. How come you're not up listening to me? So I do a radio show. I do just a bunch of things and then I write books. So believe it or not, as a kid, I wanted to write nature books. Isn't that weird? And then about 35 years ago, I got an opportunity to write my very first book. And there was a new company, a new publishing company starting in Cambridge, Minnesota. They took me on as one of their first authors, and I got to realize my lifelong dream of writing a nature book. I thought this was amazing. And then nobody said stop, so I kept going. And here we are 35 years later, 200 plus books later, and still going at it on a regular basis, putting out more and more books. And then I'm a wildlife photographer too, so which doesn't have any bearing at all on wildflowers. Okay, they're live. We're live, sure. All right, I'm gonna try to see if I can see what the heck I'm gonna be talking about here. This can be tough. Hey, yours is actually better than mine. I think I'll stand here. So normally I look up where I can see it. So let's talk about wildflowers. What kind of group is this? Who are you people? What is this group? Master gardeners. So my job is to try to tell you things that perhaps you didn't know, didn't understand, and try to get you that gee-whiz nature information. So wildflowers are more than a natural decoration. Of course they are. You know, flowers are for the reproductive part of flowers. So it comes down to reproduction. In nature, everything comes down to food and reproduction. I was gonna say the word next, but we'll get to it tonight. So basically, one thing I want to get across to everybody is that there are many different laws protecting many different plants. And before I give any talk, I always want to make sure that people understand that poaching wildflowers out in the wild is not acceptable behavior. Truly isn't, especially when we have so many garden centers that are specializing in native plants and flowers that are good in your garden and things like that. Getting them from the wild is really not the right thing to do. It should be something that we should be thinking about. Like you said, there's lots of different laws protecting some plants, especially the orchids and the trilliums and things like that. So the mysteries of wildflowers. So wildflowers are like birds, of course. People draw from their beauty. Basically, wildflowers are ephemeral. They're short-lived. You know, they're not something that's around for a long time, and they're really something that is appreciated by some and not by others. But so it's wildflowers on the basis of life on are basically all life on the planet. Think about it this way: without wildflowers. When I think of wildflowers, I think of red showy flowers, right? Not all flowers are like that. I just recently wrote an article about everybody seems to like to blame the goldenrod for our hay fever, our allergies in the fall. When in fact, it's really ragweed that does it. And of course, ragweed doesn't have a bright showy flower.
I got
It's pollen is very and it goes around. Anyhow, the flowers are very interesting in that they are really, they're not there for you, they're not there for me, they're there for what? Yeah, they're there for insects, they're not there for us, they're for the insects to find them, so that they can keep pollination. So, anyhow, so with plants, you can see, you know, they store excess carbon, burning fossil fuels, plants make our medicines, but 25% of our plants still, 25% of our current medicines are still directly from plants. Originally, they all did too. That's something that I'm not sure everybody understands. So when we find these compounds in plants that we then harness for medicines, it really comes from the metabolic rate or the metabolic system of plant creating these compounds that are then combined in ways that we can think of and then are stored in the plant's stems, leaves, and things like that. And we are taking those and using those things as our medicines. So think of it this way, our medicine is basically plants waste. Does that make sense? That's not distracting at all, is it? Anyway, so and then of course all of our food comes from these things. So 350,000 different types of kinds of plants. And I know every single one. Oh, not at all. So most plants have flowers, but not all plants are wildflowers. So another kind of play on words here. The term wildflower is a general term. That's why when we talk about wildflowers, it's very different. Here, small ground dwelling plants, fall in that category. Native plants fall in that category. Small to large flowers and soft stems, herbaceous plants are what we consider to be wildflowers. Because honestly, so this plant, dandelions, is wild. That's how it is, right? It's just how you look at it. You know what the definition of weed is, right? It's just a what? Yes, it's just a plant growing that you don't want to. That's all. So, so flowers are not for you. They're not for me. Flowers are really insects, and they come in these variety of colors, and things like that to be able to attract insects. So specific flowers attract specific insects. I mean, like the orchids attracts very specific type of insects to in order to get that cross pollination. And of course, it's a mutual relationship with insects. Now you have that that's something. It's a head structure because we've got these flowers that settle themselves up to be able to pollinate in certain ways, like a closed gentian that only large, strong enough insects like bumblebees are able to open up the petals to get inside, to be able to get that nectar tree that then picks up those picks up that pollen for cross pollination. And so that plant, I mean, who's in charge? Is it the plant in charge or the insect? Because if you spend any time at all thinking about it, you realize that it's actually the plant that's in charge, not the insect. And then high energy nectar, of course, some that's what's the payoff. That's the lure. That's the thing that brings the hummingbirds or insects into the flower. That gets its treat, and then it inadvertently picks up the pollen and moves into another flower and get that cross pollination. So some birds, of course, go over this like hummingbirds too. So and then the nectar is, of course, a sweet, high energy food made up of about 75% water, 25% sucrose, which is just a simple sugar. And that treat is good enough to be able to get the plants to command the birds and the insects to do the bidding for them. You know, so it's really kind of a money, but when you think about it, who's in charge? So daytime bloomers produce more nectar than during the daytime than they do at nighttime, which is interesting. Nighttime bloomers produce more nectar at night. And then studies show that wildflowers that are visited at higher rate produce more nectar in response to the higher visitation rate. So the more they're being visited and the more their nectar is being drained, the more the flowers actually react to it, producing more nectar to fill it back up. So you know it's got to be the plant's charge. So by the way, I took this picture out in Arizona.
Next, we get bats that come in and feed on the nectar, desert flowers that come in. So insects are extremely important, of course, part of this natural world here. 7 to 10 million kinds of insects in the world. That's all that. And then, of course, they do the pollination for these flowers. So flowers produce the pollen in different sizes, and the pollen is really interesting too. Pollen collects on the legs of insects and the bills of birds. And hopefully I've got a picture in here coming up next. Let's see. That will, think of it this way, it's that all this pollen moving around is a byproduct from that insect or that bird coming in for that drink. So inconspicuous flowers produce pollen that's so small. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. Ragweed is a green flower, and its pollen are pheromone. So it doesn't attract insects to it. All the trees that we have, most of the trees that we have, sugar maple, maybe or elm, or all the oaks and things like that, all produce flowers, but their pollen is airborne. It's blown out of the wind. Now, there are trees everywhere. Like I think of growing at the top, there's a lot of trees that show the flowers who rely on insects to come on. But a vast majority of those types of trees use the wind for pollination, whereas the big showy flowers are there specifically to attract insects. So the pollen, of course, is the male reproductive part of the flower. It's usually has a hard outer coat that covers the germ inside, which makes perfect sense there. And while it's one of those things where it has a lot of nutrition in it. And so it is then collected oftentimes by bees who collect up the pollen and use that for a food source. So bees have a receptacle called cucurbita on their legs, in which they carry the pollen. So you can see that they're little satellites on bees and they're flying around. That's what's kind of cool to see too. So, and then there are things like this here where we have milkweeds, which I believe are one of the most interesting groups of plants out there. And they have these fabulous flowers here. And on the flowers, they have horns. The horns that kind of come up and force the insect to stand or to put its legs in certain positions and not others. So it's forcing it to move in different directions. So again, who's in charge here, right? Because I think it's the plants. And you can kind of see it right up in there. And in those windows, between those horns, slits in which the insect leg has to naturally fall. And it goes into that slit, and it's in that slit, it gets stuck with a pollen sac. So we've been talking about individual pollen grains. It's not really small, but in the milkweeds, they have these pollen sacs. So that sac and that sac are filled with pollen grains, lots and hundreds and thousands of them in there. And that black spot is very sticky. And so it sticks its leg down in there, the sticky part sticks to the leg of the insect, they pull it out, and then they have a settlement stop to the leg. And then when you fly to the next milkweed flower, you have to put the leg right in there, drop in this sac into specialized receptacle that completes the pollination. That's why when you see, how many people grow with the garden, right? Have you ever noticed, okay, how many flowers are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 30, 40, 50. How many of those get pollen? Usually 1, maybe it's 1 or 2. But what you get is a pod that has a bunch of different seeds in it. That's because all of those pollen grains there then went to pollinate all of those in the female part of the plant. And then you get all the seeds. So it's because the chances of that insect landing in the right spot, taking up that sacs, the sacs of pollen, and then depositing it in the right spot is pretty narrow. But when it does happen, you get lots of rewards for that. So it's a really an interesting thing to see. It's like a highly specialized works and it really works. So, and there you can see it. Here's the horns. There's 5 horns in each of the flowers, and then it's on the side. Has anybody ever fascinated or known flowers? Lilies are the most fascinating. It's a fascinating flower. It truly is. So, insects that visit the milkweed sip nectar but don't collect pollen. Again, pollens are insects, so we can't collect pollen unless they stick their leg down in there. You know, what's really interesting part too is that those flowers, when they're not ripe, the lid of the insect can go in and can't get back out. And so then the insect is stuck there until the flowers are ripe enough where it can then move those pollen sacs and then move on to the next flower. So when you plug dating and start. So these star-shaped flowers we talked about at the 5 horns. There's a small slit where they put their leg into there. So it's really fascinating thing. There are entire insect communities that only live on milkweeds and nothing else. So these are really quite special. Yes. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the pollen, those nectar from flowers, but they're not, they don't, that's a totally different system. So the female, what happens with the monarchs, female lands, you ever wonder how they can tell what planet they're on? You know, you just hear about flying, flipping around, you land that plane, what do you want? Oh, John, you can stand back and look at it. I don't think so. You're literally on the leaf. And so what they do is they drum the front legs, and they're intended that it can pick up the scent coming off of drumming with the feet on the leaf, and then they can tell if they're on the leaf or not. And then she'll kind of bend her abdomen around to the underside of the leaf, touch the tip of her abdomen to the underside of the leaf, deposit one egg, and then go off to another. It's that egg that hatches, and then those tiny caterpillars will then start eating the milk. So, and I don't need to go into that whole snormetry and know all that pretty well. So, flower parts and parcels here. So every flower's got basically 4 parts. We got sepals, we got petals, we got stamens, we got pistils, and 4 parts here. In many species of wildflowers, the flower is made up of these 4 parts, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between a sepal and a petal. So, for example, when you look at it here, here's sepals. They sure look like petals to me, but they're not. And then here you can see the petals over on this side there. So you really have to kind of dissect it, take it apart and look at it. Know what those parts are to be able to understand the difference between the two. So, hello. So then we got, wow, why is it jumping around here? Stigma and the style combines together to make the pistil, which is the female part, and the filament and the anther is the stamen, and that's the male part. So you can see the male parts are the big gaudy parts, and then the female parts are the smaller, kind of sticky with pollen sticks to it too.
Bye.
All right, and you can see the same thing here.
No, I'm going to actually.
We have sepals there. The sepals are in the,
I'm going to leave it because.
like that. So, all right. It's hard to see it so far away. You can actually see it better when you're. So, perfect and imperfect flowers. Perfect flowers. So, flowers have all 4 parts. Basically, are considered a perfect flower, and the ones where they combine parts, then they're considered imperfect. So, and when a plant has both male and female on the same plant, it's called monoecious. And then when it's the male and female are on different plants, it's dioecious. You know the words monoecious? 1 house or 2 house. Houses, how many houses they live in. So, and then we have, I think some flowers like the composites are, I think, are absolutely fascinating. Composite flowers look like one single flower, but it's not, it's actually made up of many flowers. So we have the ray flowers, which are these petals going around. Those ray flowers, each one of those is an individual flower. So the next time you go and listen to a flower, look at it closer and you actually see all the parts of the flower because you see this standing all like that. And then you have the discs in the middle, that's the yellow part.
Those that are all individual flowers also. So if you look at this, that is not one flower, that's probably 150 flowers. All combined together. All independently looking to be pollinated. So it kind of complicates things right away, doesn't it? You know, when you got these this flower, the great flowers, same thing here. Each one of these petals going around is an actual flower. And then the same thing in the middle here. Each of those disc flowers, or each of those discs are made up of many, many flowers. So, and these flowers are really landing pads for insects. That's basically what they are. They're basically the plant going, hey, over here, come here, pollinate me. And that's what the flowers are really for. So flowers with large flat tops are attracting larger insects, like butterflies that don't really land very well. And then nectar guys, you guys know about these? You put these flowers under UV light, you can actually see lines pointing down where the nectar is at. So there's been a lot of work with UV light. I've got like 4 or 5 UV flashlights up in the truck, and it's the most amazing things we discovered. And in this case here, you see these dark lines that run down the great flowers into the center. So if we can't see them, doesn't mean that they're not there. And then if they're there, what are they there for? If we can't see them. Because we can't see the ultraviolet light, can we? Of course not. Who can? The insects see the ultraviolet light. And now we've learned a lot of birds, maybe all of the birds can see the UV light. And this is why when birds, we oftentimes, we as people, we do this all the time. We take kind of our human experience, how we interface with the world, the way we experience things, and we kind of project that onto the natural world, kind of project it onto the birds or the animals, and all that's what they're thinking. I'm here to tell you, as a wildlife biologist, we're always wrong when it comes to those things, because birds are seeing things that we don't see. They're hearing things we don't hear. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's probably a lot more that's going on here too. And this is just one more example of it. There are these nectar guides on these flowers that you and I can't see. The insects see, the birds see them, you know. And so there's a lot more interaction going on out there too. So the shape to be fed, which is interesting, because the flowers are really shaped to attract specific types of insects. So shape of the flowers attract specific types of insects and birds. So the length of the tube, which is the corolla, of course, leads to the nectar and limits the types of insects that can feed in there. So in this case, we got hummingbirds and moths that can feed, and that's about it. So, and then we got these nectar robbers, which I think are absolutely fascinating. So you got these flowers with long tubes on them, long bullets, and those long bullets, and some insects can't get to them, so they say, well, if you, and what do? They go to the end of it, they chew a hole where then they can get it to nectar, and then they can't, they might see the dog. So they're not competing. And then another thing, like hummingbirds are taking advantage of, like going into that open hole, that insect chewing. So there's lots of interesting things going on there too. So it's kind of like an arms race between the flowers and the insects and birds. So the flowers are trying to change, they're trying to adapt, they're trying to force the insects and the birds into doing different things that they don't want to do. So the wildflowers appear in many dazzling colors, of course, and not only do they look great, but they have remarkable fragrance. And then when a flower is ready to be pollinated, it produces the most amount of fragrance too. So scent during the day, scent during the night. These are cues that bring in more insects. As you know, there's lots of insects that can detect flower odors upwards of a half a mile away. What's that like? Can you imagine that if we had that, if we could smell things half a mile away? If it's bad house. Well, if it's back there, it's thinking about things too. So, and then there's lots of things going on, trickeries going on. So this is, of course, the wild ginger, and what they do is they put out a flower, which is a beautiful flower, but they put it smack right on the ground. And the smell that comes out, it smells like rotten meat. It smells like carrion. Has anybody ever talked about it? It's a use the smell of dirty ginger flowers? You should do it. It's amazing because it smells like rotten meat. Another thing will attract beetles that are attracted to carrion, rotten meat. And so they climb in here thinking that they found rotten meat. What do? They walk around on there, calling and burning. This is a rotten meat, and then leave for the next one. So they literally trick this beetle into for them without, giving that meal to them. And then, well, there's scent trickery goes on with the orchids too. They release fragrances that mimic the odor that a female or male insect gives off. That's downright cruel. That's not right. And the scent entices other insects to enter the flower where they expected to find it, and they're very so yeah, it's an interesting. Except arms going on. Things happening literally right under our nose, which is kind of fun. So, and then the opening and closing of flowers I find absolutely fascinating too. So most flowers open and stay open until pollination is complete. However, there's a lot of flowers that will close when the sun goes down. Because when the sun goes down, the type of insects that they want to come visit the flowers are not active. So why advertise if you're not open for business? So you close at night. And then there's other flowers that open at night because they only want specific types of moths to come to them. This is really amazing stuff. So wildflowers that grow new cells each day on the inside of the flower to open and close. These are specialized cells that cause the flower to open. So there's lots of fun things going on there. And then others open and close the blooms and pumping water in and out of the cells. And then how about some of those flowers that follow the sun? Because there's a microclimate that's creating on the top of that flower that the sun helps to create. So overnight in the petals. So many flowers open during the daytime when temperatures are warm, and insects are active, but they close at night. What happens is, as the sun goes down and gets colder, insects become less active. And sometimes within the flower, the flower will close. Guess what? That's where you're spending the night. And besides, these insects at night, when it's cold, less active. So if you get out early in the morning, you'll see it's just hanging on flowers. Maybe they're all night. They're waiting for it to warm up so they can become active again instead of moving again. So when all this happens, the insect spends the night in the embrace of the flowers. And then some of them, here's a bottle gentian. You guys know this flower, bottle gentian? That's full bloom right there. Full bloom. It's a full bloom. But when in fact what it's doing is it relies only on the bark of insects and bumblebees who are strong enough to open to go inside to be able to pollinate and get that certain nectar. What we do with the kids at the nature center, we have a lot of gentians growing on bird, so we wait for a couple people to go inside and which push the top over. And then the bees like this. It's crazy. So, and then he's just like, oh, that was the bumblebee comes out. He's like, who did that? So, yeah, it's a lot of amazing things going on with these things. We have our nighttime bloomers, of course, primrose. So many flowers only open at night. The nocturnal flowers have the most fragrance because they're working in the dark. Of course, they tend to be white or yellow, and they attract nighttime insects. And then mostly our moths and other nighttime insects. So it's really an interesting thing how all the activity changed that too. 4 o'clock, these are great flowers here. They produce cluster flowers that open late in the afternoon until afternoon. We run around 4 o'clock. So that's why they got their name 4 o'clocks. So and then they stay open all night long. So and then not all wildflowers grow at the same way or have the same life cycles. So we have the spring ephemerals. These are a whole different group of plants. We have summer bloomers. We have our after the wildflowers. They're kind of a weedy nature. But the spring ephemerals, I think we'll talk about those next. No, we'll talk a little bit about the spring ephemerals a little bit. Ephemeral, short-lived. These are the flowers that come on, bloom before the leaves come out of the tree. The blue, attract, become pollinated, and then die into the ground. Before the leaves even grow on trees in springtime. It's a very quick, short, season for them. And then growing towards the sun, like the goat spear does this, they always grow towards the sun in that direction. So, which is a fun little trick that they've got. They track the sun. So some wildflowers track the movements of the sun, not just towards it. So lots of stuff going on there. And then we've got our prairies, which are a whole other set of wildflowers. So species of native prairie wildflowers and grasses evolved over hundreds of thousands of years with fire. So how about that? You're going to get burnt up. So you adapt to that type of environment. So most of these plants are usually in the spring because they're drier grasses and things like that. So, and so it's an interesting process in that when we have a prairie in our nature center, and when we burn it, we get a whole and then we get most of the grasses, but then after that, the grasses start to down, we get a whole different set of plants. Maybe the year after, the new year, there's a different set of plants, and then it kind of dies back down. Then we burn it every 6 to 10 years or so, and then a whole other set of plants pop up from it. So it's an interesting process too. That when what does it do? It releases all the carbon, nutrients in all those plants that are laying dead, returns that nutrients to the soil, and more importantly, what it does is that it blackens the ground because most of our prairie plants are summer-blooming plants, so we need warmer soil temperatures. That blackened ground will help to raise the temperatures of the soil much faster. And so those plants get a chance to germinate and grow faster on the years that it burns than it does in years where it doesn't burn. So, and then non-native versus native plants. So people have transported plants from around the world, mainly for food. That's why we have dandelions. They were brought here as a food source. You know the story, right? Dandelion, with the name dandelion, dandelion, tooth of the lion. It's French. We. And it was brought here when early settlers didn't have fresh food over winter. And so they suffered to walk to scurvy over winter. They didn't have it fresh. Nobody could see this. And so therefore, they would kind of water to grow as it goes in spring. That's a lot of them in seed. They would harvest that, and then they would give it a ton of it, or leaves, or the whole variety of things to do with it, and they would immediately do that because they had this confusion about seed. And so this is what was moving gardens. Of course, one thing they didn't like to do was seeds and they blow out, and then they march across the country well before settlers did. So anyhow, so most of these things were brought here like that. Dandelion, chicory. You guys know chicory? Lots of chicory grows around here. Why was it brought here? What's that? Coffee substitute. Yeah, it was a substitute to milk. Where it ground up and ground up, roasted, and they use it as coffee substitute. Alfalfa was brought here. Believe it or not, there's places here in this country that developed their own technology. South of the global specifically, it's more very plant. So, of course, garlic comes from the pound mash, which is one of the most quicker. It was brought in to stabilize local sides when they're doing construction. And they can always be good to grow fast and that. And the fact is, the baby mind system. There it is, right there. Well, that's alfalfa. That's convention there. It's absolutely awful. It's everywhere. It's over everywhere. You can max of an area. Out of being my prairie half the time too. So it's terrible. It's not good for any wildlife. It's awful. So, but it was wrong. Brought on purpose. Stabilized seeds. New construction sites and things like that. So annuals, biennials, and perennials. This is something we should talk about briefly. We got annuals that start from seed every year. We got biennials that every 2 years with a mature flower. And then we've got
trends. Every year, new flowers on too. So here's just some pretty pictures of some really nice wildflower area. We have our spring wildflowers, of course. Can be the best time for flowers is the spring. The spring ephemerals are just the greatest. There's a long list of them, including things like trout lilies. Here, they get their name from trout. And then these are plants that are not involved where they don't really reproduce with the flowers. So they're not doing sexual reproduction, they're doing asexual reproduction by slowing the bulbs. And then they're from one bulb to two bulbs. And then there's all that, so it's kind of slowing each other. So it's really an interesting, and this is what they look like, but rarely these plants, these rely on the flowers for reproduction. That's interesting. Why do it? It's not a lot of energy to put into these flowers here. So, and then orchids, of course, are highly prized and specialized plants. Over 100 million years been around. 100 million. Who remembers back on? Yes. Yes. So one of the largest groups of flowering plants, 30,000 different types of orchids here, and some can live as long as 100 years, and which is really, spectacular. So they have unique features. Male and female reproductive parts are fused into one structure, which is unusual. Normally there's 4 separate parts. They don't have individual grains of pollen either. So pollen grains are fused together into a compact structure called the pollen, much like the milkweeds. So a single visit from an insect moves hundreds of pollen grains at one time. It's efficient, much more efficient to do it that way. So, and many orchids specialize in one species of insect or another to be able to complete their pollination. They use deceptive things to attract these insects, like physical mimicry and chemical attractants. I'm telling you, it's the plants that are in charge here. It's not the insects. The insects are like, whatever, okay, let's just do it, And the plants are the ones who are doing all these interesting things. So lots of different lady slippers, about 50 different types of them. And look at these flowers with these really unusual flower parts that you don't find on other types of flowers. So then, of course, the trilliums are another favorite group. All the species have their parts in threes, hence the name trillium. 3 leaves, 3 sepals, 3 petals. So there's a large flower trillium, often grows in large carpets, especially around here. And of course, they turn pink at the age. How nice is that? You want to turn it. And so the painted trillium is one of those more spectacular trilliums here, uncommon around these here. So bloodroots, when a fascinating flower, this one is the spring ephemeral, emerging from nearly frozen soils. And then the flowers open up on 7 days and close down shut. Because they're pretty. What's really spectacular about them is like right here, I don't think you can see it. It's kind of cut off, but the leaf comes up. And the leaf is like I don't know, circular pattern, and then the flower goes up between it. And what it's doing is the leaf, it's kind of like this. My hand is the leaf, and this is the flower, it's right here. And what it's doing is it's creating a microenvironment for that flower to attract insects to come in to it with the pollen. Because that early in the spring, when it's that cold out of snow, there's insects that are flying around, and they are looking for those nice warm environments to help. And that's what they do. They'll find them. And then what happens after creates a nice microenvironment? Insect comes in, pollination is complete, then all of that is small, of course, and then that nice thing leaf goes. I have other things to do. It literally opens up and goes to here because now it's turning to changes from protector to what's it going to do now? So it's interesting. It's going to collect sunlight because it has to build enough photosynthesis to put into its roots to be able to survive to next year. Because within another week or two, all the trees will get all the leaves and there'll be no more sunlight on the forest floor. And that plant is all. So it's like, okay, quit pollinate me, sunlight, this one, and then you die with the ground.
And by June, you don't even see these plants anymore. They're gone. Until next spring.
So there's lots of interesting things going on with these things. Past flowers do the same thing. You know, past flowers will be past. Passover. No, the Passover. That's where it comes from. So there's lots of different things here. Lots of stuff going on. I love these, the sharp-billed hepaticas, all the hepaticas are great. The name hepatica comes from the 3 lobes on the leaves. And if you want these 3 lobes on our liver. And so they always thought this was a time in which they thought all the plants were put on earth to be able to serve man. It's a pretty lofty assumption there, and one of the facts, so they called it hepaticus because they thought these 3 lobes it must treat something with your liver. Of course it doesn't. But that's how it got its name. And when they do the same similar type of thing, they create a little microenvironment, and then as soon as the flower is pollinated, petals drop off, and then the flower stem grows. After the fact, it can be done by the time you put up its flower, it can be done growing. But in fact, after it's pollinated, then the stem grows and arches down towards the ground. And the developing seeds on hepatica have a coating on it that's attracted to ants. So it's now put its seeds near the ground where the ants can get to it, and then the ants come by and go, oh, they're attracted to it. They take those seeds, they bring it back to the colony, thus planting it, and you've got more hepaticas growing. Who's in charge here? It clearly seems like the plants to me. So Spring Beauty is another beautiful one. I'm going to kind of whip through these things here because a lot of these I'm sure you know about. Common blue violets here are just wonderful all over the forest floor in the springtime. Jack in the pulpit, of course, a distinct flower growing beneath its leaves. There's the flower inside there, protected in there. Jack is sitting inside his pulpit. So some interesting stuff. And it's absolutely stunning here. And then it produces these berries that contain calcium oxalate. Which is really rough on the tongue and the throat and can cause a lot of irritation if you ever try eating those. Don't do it. Okay. The Dutchman's breeches. Of course, it looks like plant pants upside down here. These waxy blooms here. Fire pink's another cool one. The nice flower. I travel all over the place photographing these different flowers. So, and then we have those are the spring flowers. Now we have the summer flowers, which are completely different. They actually live a little bit longer. They can be larger. They can be more gaudy, more out in the open. These types of things. They live out in the direct sunlight. They're quintessential summer flowers. The purple cone flower, of course, it's everywhere now. Every garden center sells them. But again, a disc flower. Look at each one of these is an individual flower, as is each one of these rays is an individual flower there. So many disc flowers surrounding it like that. Stop my clicker, stop clicking. See here. Yeah, so that just stopped working. Oh, and no, it's for can anything more go wrong? Wow, hang on here. We were there, right? Between the singing and the garbage and. That is a challenge to talk, guys. So Indian people. Here's the worst part about this. Having fun with that, I think about it right now. The medications I'm taking means I can't get any alcohol. That's the cruel part about it. All right, let's come on, work with me. All right, let's start working. So Indian paintbrush, of course, about 200 different species. I love these flowers. These are really spectacular. Here showing red and orange flowers here. But of course, those aren't the flowers. Those are bracts. those aren't the flowers. So you have to really take a look at it. Through here, blazing star, another fabulous flower that occurs in the summertime, attracts a lot of butterflies, bees, and the flowers open from the top, going down the stalk, which I think is fairly unusual. Common milkweeds are most common in summertime. There they are, those gorgeous flowers on there. So, and we don't have to talk about monarchs with that doing. So, and there's different types of people, the small milkweed, butterfly weed, there's lots of different milkweeds out there. So you can get those for your garden. Here's butterfly weed, which is another one of those types of milkweeds here. One of the shows all summer flowers here. I find these things, I find the milkweeds incredibly fascinating. There are entire communities of insects that only live right on the milkweeds alone, nothing else. So fire pink is another good one. These things occur at the burned areas. So jewelweed is one that I have. My yard, and boy, the insects just kind of go crazy with this here too. Also called country nuts, you get notice up here. Because they have those shaped seeds on it. And they don't right for the touching of the store. And they throw the seeds at them. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Nobody wants their children to go on their feet. No, they go out in the world. So they toss their seeds in all different directions. So fantastic thing there. A common yarrow, another one of those with big flat cluster on it to attract in a lot of different insects on it, fern-like leaves on it. Indian pipe, what a great wildflower. So lacking any chlorophyll in its lights, and they are they basically live off of the connection with tree roots and draw energy from the trees. So it's a parasite. It's very interesting stuff there. Black-eyed Susan's another garden favorite, you know, a composite flower with hundreds of different flowers in there. Queen Anne's lace, that's one that is received more and more and more. This is a byproduct from growing trees in warmer climates. They transport the trees up to this area, and now we're seeing more and more Queen Anne's lace. 25 or 30 years ago, you can see the answers very much going around here, and now we do. It's all from moving around. So we see this a lot. What is it's interesting, it's got that white flower, so it's one dark one in the center there too. UV reflective again for the insects. So flowers open one at a time on the chicories, which I think are fascinating here. So a non-native wildflower too. And then we got our late bloomers, of course, goldenrods. We get fields full of those goldenrods, and everybody can play with them. You know, boneset is another one of those great flowers that is from late summer time that things are winding down. Like so, beauty and form and function. So we're surrounded by a wide variety of flowers. Remember, wildflowers are here for not here for beauty; they're here for insects. They're for reproduction of these flowers here. Insects get their food in exchange for pollination. Wildflowers play a huge role in the natural world, and everything on Earth depends upon these flowers here. So, with that, I'd say thanks for listening to this unbelievably challenging part. I'd be happy to answer questions. Yes. Yeah, do they charge you for it? More. One of the to kind of recycle those nutrients and maybe those more so you don't worry about the moment too. That's actually very intensive. Yeah. So there's a couple of things. One, we heard that we heard beach, meaning never be higher than the prairie. Where do all of those insect names? Where do all those small mice and wolves all go?
Because you're burning for so much. It's not long, but I think we can run around. In my pockets. When I'm here that way, so. What I did in the pretty much sit in the pocket shut, and I wanted to photo a specific type of ball. So I came back into the nature center, jumped it off, put it on the chair, and go and wash my hands, turn around in the back, and this is we threw a hole from my jacket to the side. So when you burn, and you kind of wipe out the diversity of insects, because the insect aids are alcohol, so we have a large fraction burn half of it. And then the other half kind of in reservoir for the insects and for things like that. And then the other thing kind of is, so remember I talked about the blackening of the soil, and that our prairie trees are summer plants, so they need higher soil temperatures to germinate. So you're artificially like bumping the season up ahead by burning, and then it gets them to grow. All of our non-food things like crown veg and garlic and stuff, those are all cool season. They want cooler temperatures, and so they tend to get better. So that's why burning does help with really those non-food plants too. So, but I'll be better. Yeah, nice too.
Better really probably somewhere are the insects moving somewhere else for their needs and birds or what you see.
If you didn't hear it, she's asking about there's always summer words are insects and birds. I think it's really affected a lot of our insects. We have not had a lot of insects, which on one hand it's good because there wasn't a lot of mosquitoes there. And on the other hand, it's not a lot of food for birds or wildlife too. So, but here's the deal. This is what I think. We as people, we think everything should stay the same all the time. And that's not how nature works. Nature works by ebbs and flows, ups and downs, bigs and littles, and a lot and then nothing. And that's how nature works. So it's normal for nature to have these types of things. It's just we as people, we want it to stay the same. We want it to, consistent. And it's never consistent. So, yeah.
There are actually less accurate plants when there's a drought.
You would assume so, less than the plant when there's a drought. Yeah, because where's it getting this from? The ground. And it's getting from rain. So yeah, you would have less flowers, you would have less nectar, you would have less crops and everything. I don't know, man. We're in it. Right now, I've got the questions. I've got a table full of books to see me as a backwards. You guys have anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so you want to stop sharing when you get them?
Yes.
Yep. There, you folks out there, and you folks in here. We're gonna take a brief, let's say 10 minutes and break and have some refreshments, and then we'll get back here. So you guys who are Zooming, go have a little snack or something, and we'll get back and have a short business meeting. Thanks now.
Anything else that can go on?
Very much. Thank you.
Well, that's really nice.
We're not even done. I know, we're not done. No way. And here's one.
Oh, thank you.
It's even better. Forget the paper, just give me the. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
50, 60. It's a significant part of what I do to make a living. So, yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very informative.
Wow,
There
yeah,
you go, sir. Yeah, I know it.
you know the technology, like you. Actually, you know,
Yeah.
the technology.
Here, we're gonna see if we can start it back up here and finish it. For you folks zooming. All of Stan's books are on his website, which is naturesmart.com. Now, if I leave these glasses on, I can see the screen, but I can't see the people here at the meeting. So I'm gonna take them off. Just a couple of things. Our November meeting, which will be elections, and some of our grant recipients will be talking about what they did. That will be a hybrid meeting like this. We'll have live meeting here at the church, and we'll also Zoom it. And then we decided, our board decided we would straight Zoom our January and February meetings. And then we'll go from there. I don't know if we'll start the hybrid meetings in March or stick to Zoom for a month or two longer, but I know we've planned through February to do straight Zoom meetings for next year. Now, I made Barb Peterson a co-host so that she could share the screen, and if she wanted to, but she can talk to us. She is heading up our nomination committee. And she's gonna have some candidates for us for our next meeting. You wanna tell us what you got, Barb?
I will. I'd like to, can you hear me?
I can, but people can't. So what are we gonna do here? Up. Hold on.
Okay.
Try it now, Barb.
Okay. What about this? Can people hear me?
Yep, there we go.
Okay, super, good enough. Well, I'm pleased to report that Margaret Smith has agreed to serve as our treasurer if she is elected in November. And Barb Colpine has agreed to be a candidate for Pierce County Representative. At this moment, I don't yet have someone to represent St. Croix County on the board. I have spoken with one person who is at this moment considering it. But at the same time, I would like to let everyone who's on or in the meeting, if they are a resident of St. Croix County, and if they will have their hours in this year and their education so that they will be official next year, and are interested in representing St. Croix County, they can let me know. It's always wonderful when on occasion people do step forward and volunteer. And I don't know if everyone knows this, Leroy, but the board meetings are all Zoom meetings. So people who live in far distant parts of the county do not have to worry about driving to the meetings. So, or alternatively, if people head south for a month or two, they can still participate from wherever they're vacationing. So that's a real plus. One of the responsibilities of this person is the representatives is to ensure that our counties, our association is well represented at the county fair. Not necessarily needing to take the lead, but just to work with the people who take on those volunteer responsibilities. So anyway, if anyone is interested as a backup, that would be wonderful. So.
Thank you, Barb. So, how many of you here want to sign up to be a candidate for St. Croix County rep? Whoa. Please think about it.
There's a surprise.
And go ahead and contact Barb if you're interested.
Right.
Or me, and I can pass it on. Thank you, Barb. I do not have anything else to cover tonight. Does anyone in the audience have anything they would like to bring up before we wrap her up? Bridget does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you guys should have received an email today from Deb about membership dues and stuff. And in that email, it talked about page 2, where you would have any recommendations of programs or speakers that you would have seen. So if there's something, please make sure you fill that out. But what I really mainly want to talk about is next year. Yeah, one more. There we go. Next year, it's our 25th. And so there are plans right now for our celebration for this. And so I came across one of our members here Facebook page and was looking at it and realized that they have like talents that I didn't even know about. So I found that pretty fascinating. And so I think all of you have something that you're passionate about, that you want to share with us, that you know something about your special interests or something. And so next year, as our programs, I would love to focus on what our members have to offer. So I have a sign up sheet. If you are interested in presenting a topic, and even if you don't know a topic, you could just sign up and we can have a conversation about it. If you have something that you would love to share, but you don't want to do that, please put it down anyways. Let's talk about it. There's other ways that we can get you to present without you presenting. We can figure this out, but I would love to know what you know. And I think everybody else here would like to know the same. And the other thing on here is, right now there's 2 people on the program committee, myself and Colleen Foxwell. And I would love for your input as well. So if you're interested in being on this committee, I can give you more details on what that involvement entails. Mainly it's now is when you're really busy and then it slows down for the rest of the year. But if you're interested, put that on here as well. So I'll just leave this on the little counter when you guys walk out. And and then if you're not sure, you put little pull tabs so you can just take it and think about it and email me another time. So I would love to hear from you. Okay.
Or anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring up? Well, thank you all for coming. We'll wrap her up. Thank you folks for zooming with us. And we'll put some chairs away and we can go home. Bye now.